All right, greetings everyone. Somebody's got a speaker on. Okay, good. We're good to go. Greetings everyone. This is Commander X. We are live. It is May 22nd, 2021. We're about 12 minutes late starting. It's about 12 past noon Central Time. As usual, a little bit of a problem kicking the engine going, but we got it going. Thank you, everybody who's joining me today. Thank you, everyone who's tuning in. This is episode 3, volume 3. X Speaks the World Through Sunglasses. We have an incredible show. So get some snacks, get settled in. You're also probably going to want a pad and some paper. Take some notes because you're going to learn some stuff and you're going to want to write it down. It's going to be an unbelievable show. So we have briefly right now we have Steve with us from Slow Newsday Show. We have Keith McHenry on board, and we're gonna not waste a moment of time. We're going to dive right into it. But first, I want to say a word to our sponsor. This show is always and perpetually sponsored by the Friends of X Committee. A shout out to Natalia Rivera Scott in Mexico City, who most likely is tuned in by now. I see Ian, my dear friend and my agent up in Toronto, is tuned in. Shout out to him as well. And everybody settled in. It's going to be a fantastic show. But every show is sponsored by the Friends of X Committee guys. So fundraiser.com/Friends of X. Natalia continuously needs your help and support. I have made some decisions about this stream, guys. Among other things, the platform. I think we're going to stick with YouTube, but I've also decided I'm not going to monetize this channel in any way, shape, or form. Not on the archive, not on the live streams, and I'm not going to accept any advertising. Those were big decisions for me, but it means that the Friends of X Committee is the only way this show stays on the air. Because I guarantee you the first thing I cut, if I have to start trimming budgets, is going to be this show. So if you like the content that you're about to see today and or have seen in the past, please give as generously as you possibly can to the Friends of X, and the URL is on the screen now. What I wanted to begin with today, guys, is to level the playing field. What we have here is a very OG, top-heavy show, and most of us here know every detail of or a lot of the details, certainly, of the history and whatnot. The incredible adventure, really, of Food Not Bombs and Keith McHenry. But we also probably have people with just moderate knowledge, maybe just heard about it, and maybe even some folks who just have completely never heard of Food Not Bombs. So I spent some real serious time this week and tried to put together a 10-minute trailer that would do the most concise way to sort of it's entertaining, but it should put everybody on a more level playing field so that maybe we can jump to some tier 2 questions as opposed to get the basics out of the way. I think you'll really like it. It will be incredibly informative, and when we get back at the end of this 10-minute little trailer thing that I put together, we'll put rubber to the road and start digging into the history of Food Not Bombs and this incredible individual who could take 3 words and make it into a global movement. So stand by. All my guests and my hosts, stay muted, please. And on the other side of this, we'll begin the show. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. I am a little bit nervous, but I think it's going to be a great show. So kick back and take a look at this and learn a little bit about what we're talking about.
in Southern California look at San Francisco as being one of the most liberal cities in the United States. After having fucking cops chase food on bombs for however many years it's been, that's a load of fucking shit, and like Al said, liberals suck. It's against the law to feed homeless! It's against the law to sleep in the park! It's against the law for you to see me! I live outside! I'm a criminal! I live outside the law! I send this part to Flex Vlog. I can tell you every nick in this bitch. Watch the cycle up and down. Listen away your underbelly! Fuck you, cop! I wanna eat! Fuck you, mayor! I live here! Fuck you, law-abiding citizen! You pushed me here! Fuck you, voter! I will never disappear! All your systems will crash one day, and you will crawl to me! Let's end this part! Let's like I tell you every nick in this bitch! Watch the sun go up and down! Whistle away your underbelly! And all I wanted was food, and all I wanted was food, and all I wanted was food, and all I wanted was food. In liberal San Francisco, liberal San Francisco, liberal San Francisco, to be homeless is a fucking crime!
What is happening here? What's
happening here?
Yeah.
People are here to eat, for one thing, and lately, since the gathering's been happening, people have been being arrested again for serving free food, and especially, in San Francisco for the years of police harassment against food not bombs. And since the gathering has been happening, the police have been trying to crack down again because the United Nations 50th anniversary celebration is coming up in San Francisco, and the corporations of the United States will hate for the rest of the world to see that people are starving in the streets of the richest nation in the country. And so Food Not Bombs out here serving poor people. And the last thing that the capitalist and state of the United States would want is for us to continue serving free food in the United Nations Plaza. And so they're going to crack down and arrest people for doing it, hoping to drive us out of the UN Plaza so that we're not here during the celebrations.
I'm Chris White, in case I get arrested. Christopher White. Most people call me Spam.
Hey, thanks, Chris.
Oh, wait, I'm from out of town. I'm a tourist. I'm from North Carolina.
All right.
I'm from Asheville, North Carolina.
And they say they're doing this in the name of tourism.
In the name of tourism.
Okay. Let me get another pot. Is this
I'm Ramula, and I came here from Arcata, and I'm involved with the Arcata food.
Two people from Florida who are leaving in a week, and then she's from Baltimore, and then there's someone from Portland, and me. I'm from Seattle, but...
Excuse me, officer, what are these people being arrested for? Could you please tell me?
I don't really need to.
Could you please tell me what these people are being arrested for?
Court order stating that they're not allowed to serve food out here, and that we're enforcing that, sir.
So what's the charge, please, officer? Can I ask you that? What charge?
I don't know. My sergeant is here. You might ask him that.
Charge that these people are being charged. What are they being arrested for? Excuse me, officer.
It's a political thing.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a powerful weapon.
I think so too.
Hunger is a powerful drive. It forces people to do things they wouldn't otherwise do.
Hi, I'm Keith, and I'm one of the 8 original people that started Food Not Bombs. Food Not Bombs collects produce and bread and food that can't be sold from grocery stores, bakeries, produce markets and things like that, and we make free vegan and vegetarian meals that we serve on the streets in 1,000 cities of the world. We're not a charity, and then some chapters have started going that solidarity, not charity, as one of their banners and stuff, and that's because it's really the best possible solution is not to have endless soup lines forever, but to end the reason why people are forced to go to soup lines. We have like a two concept thing where one, we're protesting and organizing against capitalism and exploitation and all this stuff that's happening. We were trying to show connection from the very beginning, that animal rights, your diet, how you grow food, being organic, abundance and sharing instead of hoarding, and scarcity. All these concepts are all linked together. And then our principles were very simple, the three principles: that the food is always vegan and vegetarian and free to anyone without restriction, that each chapter is autonomous and has no leaders, and everybody works equally using a process called consensus to make decisions, and that we're dedicated to nonviolent direct action. So because of that, it makes it very easy for anybody to do, and they don't need to get permission or some licensing fee or some crazy thing. The model is that you take food and literature in a banner, and you set up on as the highest visibility location possible, and you try to encourage people of all backgrounds to join you in eating. We encourage the people that are depending on our food to participate in the decision making and the operating of the organization. The reason that Food Not Bombs, I think, has taken off is, one, we didn't own Food Not Bombs, the original 8 people that started it, and we basically tried to make it so simple that it could be reproduced everywhere. So that was originally why it kind of worked. So in 1988, on August 15th, we were sharing food in Golden Gate Park, and to our surprise, we got arrested that day by 45 riot police. And we started getting calls and letters from people asking how they could get arrested sharing food in their cities. So we took those notes and we made a flyer called 7 Steps to Starting with Food Not Bombs. Not only were we arrested on August 15th, we were arrested again the next Monday. We were then arrested on Labor Day in November, where 54 people were arrested. All these people that never heard of the peace movement, didn't know that there was anybody that cared about these things, what happened by our tables. And just after a while, word of mouth and punk bands and fanzines and YouTube videos and all this stuff started just distributing. We got on CNN, we got in the New York Times, the Times of London, and so people started writing us from all over the world to see if they could start groups. Ecological impacts of meat production and factory farming. About 16 pounds of grain is fed to make a pound of beef. If you're trying to solve world hunger, promoting a vegan diet is much better. Getting recovered food, it's much safer to get plant-based food and be making that into meals. They're doing it over and over again. People that are homeless and hungry in the States or in other places where that's true, they they come to rely on you, they build a relationship with you, you become friends with a larger number of people. If you're collecting the food from a grocery store, you become friends with those workers and they get to know you, and you start to really build community and they can rely on you. But the regular weekly sharing food, or daily in some cities, event of sharing free food is a way for people throughout the community to come together and meet one another and then discuss all these ideas.
$1,000 cities. 1,000 cities around the world. This is what's on your screen now is the page from Food Not Bombs here in Mexico. My Spanish is worse than rusty, so it's non-existent. But 1,000 cities around the world to wake up one morning and to grab a piece of cardboard and a magic marker and write 3 words on it, and then to take those 3 words and a 5-gallon bucket of soup and make that into a global movement, a global front of revolution almost, and to eventually even be labeled by the U.S. government and other people as food terrorists. So we have with us today the founder of Food Not Bombs, and it is one of the greatest honors, first of all, that I can ever imagine. There's a bunch of ways that I could introduce Keith McHenry, but I think I just want to really leave it to the people to decide about this gentleman that you're about to meet. But again, three simple words, guys. He took 3 simple words and he marched out into the world, and with consistency and dedication staked his life and his career, his entire worldview on those 3 words, and was arrested probably more times than he can himself remember for just standing for those 3 simple words. And I'd like to point out to the Anons out there who I know are tuned in, 3 simple words, right? We are a legion. I would encourage people to start as we progress with this incredible and great show this afternoon to think and perhaps draw some parallels, because those parallels are going to come together near the end of the show when the hippie kids from the kitchen get to meet a headless guy with a mask, and we'll find out exactly how that all turns out as well. So it's going to be a great show, guys. Without further ado, I'd like to just introduce my incredible guest, Keith McHenry. Keith, it's so great of you to come on X Speaks. Thank you so much for joining me and my audience this afternoon. Well, and we'd like to do that in a sort of linear way. We're going to try to step through the history. I'd like to begin, Keith, put rubber directly to the road. Again, it was such a simple idea. And yet, it's hard to really even, for me especially, to wrap my mind around how big that idea became, and how to change so many people's lives, even never mind the changing of human history. The politics of the world are forever changed by ideas that can so deeply embed into the human consciousness that we probably don't have a viewer and we have viewers from all over the world right now, and we don't have a viewer that's ever going to see this that has not heard of Food Not Bombs. That is that's putting a mark on civilization, no matter whether for good or for bad, no matter how you feel about the politics of it. So go tell us about. How did you when you started at the very beginning, like even just back in 1989, say, there in Golden Gate Park, did you imagine that it would be? I mean, again, guys, 1,000 cities. I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. Steve, we got to stop him.
And so we decided on our way home that we would do bake sales to pay the guy back. Well, we also had an old beat up van and a moving company called Smooth Move. And we were moving this family, and they had a poster on cardboard that they were throwing out called "Wouldn't it be a beautiful day if the schools had all the money they needed and the Air Force had to hold a bake sale to buy a bomber?" So we went and bought some used military uniforms, took the sign, set up at Harvard Square or at the Boston Commons at Park Street Station, and started to try to sell our baked goods so we could buy a bomber. And of course, at that point, I had a bright red beard and bright red hair, and in no way looked like a soldier, but it did catch people's attention, and we got to hang out with people and talk to them about what was going on. So that gave us the idea to do street theater with food. The next thing, which becomes really Food Not Bombs, as we know it today in over 1,000 cities, is that we decided we'd dress up like hobos, make a bunch of soup, go to the stockholders meeting of the Bank of Boston, which is the board of directors of that bank. We're also on the board of the company both buying and selling Seabrook Nuclear Power Station. And they were also on the boards of Raytheon and Lockheed and these other military contractors. And so we, once we got this huge amount of food made, basically from the recovered food that I got from Bread and Circus, we realized that we might not have a line of people and it wouldn't look like a soup line. So I went with a friend to the Pine Street Inn, which was a Depression era shelter on Pine Street at the time, and gave a little speech to the people there, about maybe 40 guys sitting around in this room at midnight. They were into the fact, protests like the 60s. They were all excited about it. The next day they show up and people were stunned that less than like basically 2 months after Ronald Reagan was inaugurated president of the United States, that there were already soup lines on the streets, because he was indicating in his campaign that essentially he was going to divert money from social services to the military, his MX missile program, and so on, and Star Wars. And sure enough, the guys that came to eat with us were completely grateful and urged us to do it every day, because there was no food for people that lived outside in Boston. And so that night we decided we'd just quit our jobs and do nothing but collect food, recover food from bakeries and produce markets and Haymarket and all that, and then take it around all over the city to housing projects, public housing, which was much more common back in 1981. And that we would then do street theater with food in the afternoons. And so that's what we did. It was about 6 months later, the landlady, Joan Blout, decided to have what we thought was going to be the eviction lunch with us. It turned out she had heard so many great things. She was a socialite in Cambridge. Her husband had been the head of the French department at Harvard University. And she just said, everybody talked about our program and what we were doing and all the protests we were organizing, and we're really impressed. And so she agreed she said, look, at $600 a month is too much for you to pay. Why don't I'll charge you $400 a month, and you have to start paying next month. She basically gave us half a year free rent, and as a result, that helped us get the 8 of us off to doing Food Not Bombs. And essentially that house broke up after the January 12th, 1982 huge protest in Central Park in New York City on the second special conference on nuclear disarmament. We spent a lot of energy organizing towards. And a bunch of other little houses all got together after that, and Food Not Bombs just continued in Boston for up till 1986. I was involved, and then had to go underground and move to ultimately to San Francisco, where I started a second chapter, and I took notes as your film was showing, and that those notes became 7 steps to starting a Food Not Bombs. And I've been, I definitely, I was off the radar as far as from society, no social security number, none of those things. And so I was like, had like a real interest in just ideas transforming society and giving everything away. And that philosophy turned out to be perfect for creating a global, non-hierarchical, decentralized social movement like Food Not Bombs. And as the name says, we need the words Food Not Bombs more now than at any other time, since, for instance, the Biden administration has increased the military budget dramatically, is shipping more bombs back to Israel to replace the ones they just used to terrorize the people of Gaza. So that essentially all the things are in place that we were concerned about at that time, and now we have global hunger and even Europe. I used to go over to the protests against the European Union and so on back in the day, fearing that the economy would go south there too, and it sure has. And now we have unhoused people spread throughout the world. And so what we've been organizing around has been even more important as time has gone on, including being vegan, considering the relationship between that and climate change crisis, and so on. So it's that's the basic history. And ultimately, we were arrested in San Francisco over 1,000 times. The second, and that
1,000 times. I can hear somebody in my speakers. Somebody's got
750 times.
Somebody's got to turn your radio off. There you
go. Well, somebody's radio.
Yeah, there you go. Never mind. We got it.
Okay, yeah.
So Keith, tell me a little bit about those initial arrests in 1989, because that had to have been the moment for you when you realized the other shoe was going to fall. This wasn't going to go away. This was, they weren't going to let this pass. Obviously, it must have become clear to you in 1989. Talk about that sort of cathartic moment in the park. I mean, you were right there, if I recall, right at the head of Golden Gate, up close to the Haight Street.
Yeah, so we had when we started the San Francisco group, we learned that there are no meals in the Haight-Ashbury on Mondays, but the Haight-Ashbury Soup Kitchen did Tuesday through Friday, and there were 2 churches on the weekend. So we chose the entrance to Golden Gate Park at Haight and Stanton every Monday at noon. And it was a great location, not only because of the amount of people living in the park and in the dead that would be touring and hanging around the Panhandle and so on, but it also, many people from around the world would walk by our literature table, which we had strategically located right as you entered the park. And you could see our sign for about a block down Haight Street coming towards us. So then a hippie came by and said, hey, you could get a permit to do this. And in Cambridge, we had a street performance permit, which cost no money at all, and just basically was our name, address, and phone number. And so that's what I assumed that we would be doing. So I wrote a letter to the Peter Ash, who John Meehan had suggested I send a letter to. And that was dated July 11th of 88, actually. And so then the police would ask about this permit, but we didn't really know what they were talking about. And I would go to the Parks Department a block away and ask them about this permit. No one there knew anything about it. And then on August 15th of 1988, 45 riot police emerged from Golden Gate Park and arrested 9 of us. I had actually just left the hospital a block away from having spent a week there after having a ruptured appendix. And I was the first arrested, even though I technically didn't serve any food. And that profoundly disturbed people. So that we had heard rumor that there was potentially going to be a problem, which is why I brought a camera to that event, although I didn't really get to take any pictures because I got arrested right away. And so there was a very large photo, 3-column photo, in the Chronicle the next morning, I believe on page 3, and of riot police guarding the food. So that inspired people to contact us, and then we decided, okay, we'll just stay on our pattern of every Monday at noon. We met at Buena Vista Park, which is at one end of Haight Street, of Upper Haight, gathered there, had speeches, and marched down the street again, where 24 of us were arrested for serving free food. And the interesting thing that I just learned was that on that day, which was Monday, August 22nd, somehow a reliable source from a foreign government communicated with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in what had been and still largely is a top secret memo dated August 29th of 88, stating that we were a national security threat. And so that I just received that document.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. So that started. You know what's amazing about that is there's like 9 of us arrested in San Francisco, or now 24 of us arrested on that day, and there's like 8 or 9 of us in Boston, and then a small group, Rain and Seth, who you've featured in the playing music at People's Park, were doing Long Beach Food Not Bombs. So there's like less than 30 Food Not Bombs volunteers in the world at that time, probably not even barely 20. And yet they were already, the FBI was concerned about our impact. And it kind of makes sense because later, you know, it's sort of piecing things together because that Thanksgiving, so there was 94 arrests in August and September of 88, and the mayor freaked out. He was Mayor Art Agnos, the America's most liberal mayor. And so we negotiate, and they invent a permit process, and there's all kinds of scams go on with that. But that Thanksgiving, we go to, people go home for their holidays. And I remember one woman had gone to Santa Rosa to visit her friend. She was from Sweden, the woman that went to Santa Rosa, who was volunteering with Food Not Bombs. And she came back very upset that her friend's husband had been at National Guard class all weekend long, a 3-day weekend. And when he entered at the end of the weekend of the holiday, 4 days, whatever it was, and saw the Food Not Bombs button on her coat. And so he goes, oh, wow, we just studied Food Not Bombs in domestic terrorism class at the National Guard Armory. That's one of America's most hardcore terrorist groups. And we had a number of people, I believe it was around 14, 15 people, report to us at the end of Thanksgiving that year, 1988, that they were approached by Uniformed National Guard at either bus stations or at airports and told that they had just studied us, including a friend of mine over in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who recounted the story. He didn't even know we were a group at the time. He just thought it was a nice button that he was wearing on his coat, and was surprised to learn from the National Guard that we were a group and that we were one of America's most hardcore terrorist groups. So later on in that vein, I was on tour and I was speaking at Princeton. This would be in April of 2009 when I happened to watch a C-SPAN lecture of 2 State Department officials, and they're comparing the people that share the vegan meals in the parks to Al-Qaeda, who's more dangerous. And their summary was that the people serving the vegan meals were much more dangerous than Al-Qaeda, were likely to survive another 30 years, and Al-Qaeda was probably not going to last another 30 years, and that what was dangerous was we were indigenous to our local communities, and that we were
indigenous. I love that.
Public that
I love that.
Yeah,
we're
that we were,
we're
and
fucking
that we were going to,
indigenous.
we're indigenous uh, humans, yes, and that we were going to convince the American public to money should be spent on education, healthcare, and other social services, and to reduce the military spending, and therefore leave our country vulnerable to groups like Al Qaeda.
Well, and the other difference, of course, is that Al Qaeda enjoys broad, although behind the scenes, U.S. government and intelligence community support, whereas people in America who want to help homeless people have no support whatsoever from their government.
Correct. No, in fact, many now 4 decades of attempted undermining of what we do with infiltration, and I mean, I get reams of you know Joint Terrorism Task Force documents over the years from ACLU sometimes gets them to us, or through FOIAs and just other news outlets that happen to come across them.
Well,
remember
again,
MSNBC even had something about that.
again, just to highlight to my Anon viewers the parallels too, when We Are Legion, the story of the hacktivists, the major motion picture documentary about what we had done up to that point, when it was released, we were that world premiere in Toronto was mentioned in the monthly Department of Homeland Security bulletin as that month's, in the list of that month's potential threats against the USA. So ideas which in a lot of ways I really see a lot of parallels here, because Anonymous is in a very pure way a sort of an idea. It's an idea about information, but it's an idea. It doesn't really exist in any tangible way anywhere. You can't point here or there or to this person or that person and say that's anonymous. And Food Not Bombs adopting that very, very early model to do it that way, to just make an idea. I remember when I first was involved in Anonymous, I heard the idea bandied about that. Okay, quiet. Thank you. It was a viral meme of revolution. A viral meme of revolution. And I really like that. And I really see Food Not Bombs in that vein as a... And those things are terrifying to them. I mean, that's the thing, is that they exist off a meme. That's the whole thing about government money, whether it's real, whether it's not. It's like religion. It's a meme, and it's whether you believe in it or not, how much power it has over you. And so I can kind of see their reaction to this new level of information warfare that really you kind of, in a way, are a grandfather of. I mean, I can't say...
Yeah, well, it worked really well because we were already, once the internet, I remember a 10-year-old roommate of mine showed me in 10 minutes how to make a website. And it turned out, like, I thought the web had existed for decades by that time, maybe because of my experience of living in Cambridge, where it probably did exist all the time. DARPA being a big, participant in MIT and so on. But so I was surprised to find out that my first transparent GIF of scan of the Food Not Bombs button was one of the first images placed on the web. I didn't realize that we were pioneers at the time, but we were already had a network, and in those days we were sending letters to each other. But so once the advent of the web happened, and we already had a global network, that was just perfect for us. And I remember in the video you were showing at the beginning, which is the 1995 Food Not Bombs gathering, part of that, we thought, well, we need to create our own media. So we had already been making FM radio transmitters with Stephen Dunifer, and we had my station was San Francisco Liberation Radio. There was Free Radio Berkeley that Stephen was doing. There was a radio station down here.
Free Radio Santa Cruz. Free Radio
Yeah.
Santa Cruz, shout out. I've done my share of hosting on Free Radio Santa Cruz.
Yeah. So it turned out we have, I think, roughly 400 low watt radio stations. When I did a lot of touring, and I had on the Rentis Theft Tour, I took my own 5 watt, the original Stephen Duniford transmitter his very first one, I took on tour and broadcast my lectures. Well, it was really I would do a cooking demonstration where I made miso tofu spread with miso, and so that way I didn't need a flame. I could do it anywhere I wanted. And Justin, a chef's hat and chef's coat, and told this story of Food Not Bombs and how to make tofu spread, and broadcast it to little radios I placed around the room, and then people would run out to their cars to listen to the radio. We had the schematics on how to make your own FM radio transmitter and radio station, and so naturally, when the web started happening, we started getting interested in that, and so we made this thing in 1995 called Indie Media, and we set up an Indie Media Center in a office that we rented above a theater on Market Street, and we put our radio station in that same Indie Media Center and a antenna off the roof of that. So we had a radio station just for the 1995 Food Not Bombs gathering, as well as this Indie Media Center, and that took the idea all over the world. Over 1,000 people showed up to that gathering. That's where we reaffirmed our 3 principles: that the food would be always vegan or vegetarian and free to anyone, rich or poor, drunk or sober, that we'd have no headquarters, presidents, directors, that each group would be autonomous, use consensus to make decisions, and try to encourage those that depend on the food to help direct the direction of each local Food Not Bombs chapter, and that we would not be a charity, that we'd be dedicated to nonviolent direct action to change society, so no one would have to live in the streets or eat at a soup kitchen. And those 1,000 people went back and made their own Indie Media Centers, many of them, their own radio stations. So by the time of 1999 in November in Seattle, there was already a decentralized media network of Indie Media Centers all over the world. And, there was a much larger protest before the Seattle WTO protest, but they were not really seen by the world because they could, commercial media could just control events and make it seem like that protest was only in your town. But with Seattle, the fact that there was global media there because it was the WTO, and there was Indie Media in hundreds of cities around the world, it meant that what people were doing on the streets of Seattle was visible to many, many more people. And I think that opened up a whole new period of history for activism, where we were now being much more international and connected, and able to communicate in a way that got around the censorship that was so common, and is still even more common now by corporate powers. So that if we had not existed before the web, it might have been a bit different. But the fact that we already had a good 10 years or more of organizing, more than that even, it meant that we had people on the ground that we personally knew in communities all over the world that could interact and coordinate our own media platforms. And so then it was natural that Anonymous, when it would come about, would have a similar pattern, be decentralized, have the same kind of analysis of corporate power, government power, and be able to, but there's certainly a lot of Food Not Bombs activists that are also interact in the.
Are you saying? Wait. Well, pause the show here for a second. Are you saying? Are you intimating, Keith McHenry, that Food Not Bombs volunteers might have a Guy Fawkes mask in their closet at home? Is this the inference here?
It might be true. Yeah. There's some evidence that the FBI is
Seems to be very
Oh,
nearly a
we might be.
direct
We're uncovering a
pretty,
major
pretty short
conspiracy.
straight line.
We're uncovering a major
Well, very
conspiracy
fascinating.
theory here.
When you
Hey, and shout out to Jeremy Hammond.
Yes, Jeremy, for sure. Yeah.
I'd love to think
was
he's tuned in. Say
fantastic
hi,
to be
Jeremy.
able to see and talk to and hang out, at least digitally, with Jeremy for the first time in a decade. Just a couple of weeks ago at the International Festival for Whistleblowing Accountability and Dissent, that our good friend Deepa Driver put together. And also just shout out to Deepa and all of my respect and love and admiration to what she does and who she is and what she's been able to do in this activism space over the last few years.
Okay.
But yeah, very short straight line between feeding the homeless people and getting involved with Anonymous.
Yeah, there appears to be a direct connection, and the FBI.
Well, we're gonna sneak
overall little patterns where we'll get a bunch of documents showing our relationship with Earth First, for example, or then you get a bunch of documents of there's an entire system of FBI investigating our connection to the animal rights movement or to vegan movement, which might not even be animal rights, but could be just vegan. And then there's another for other, including the anti-capitalist movement or whatever. So we keep there's a cottage industry here for the FBI to keep other interacting organizations. They must step on each other quite a bit, I suspect.
Well,
I know for a fact they've interrupted their own programs against me.
I want to comment that Keith, I had this show well planned out, 3 segments. The first one was just a really good historical overview, and you literally did my job for me. I was literally sitting here ticking off questions as you went, and I'm done. You did my job. I could have gone out and walked my dogs or something and just let you handle the show. Guys, we've got so much more to come in X Speaks today. We are just putting rubber to the road with this incredible and legendary activist, Keith McHenry, founder of Food Not Bombs, and so many things to talk about. We're going to dive into our first break. And then when we come back, we're going to, I believe Steve may have some things prepared for this as well, perhaps Keith. And we're going to do our next segment, guys. We're going to sort of take the spotlight and the stage and give it to Keith. We want to talk about what he's doing right now and to point out that whatever Keith McHenry is doing right now is things that you can help him with. There's always a way, no matter where you are in the world, that you can help out and help Keith and become a part of this and directly reach out to him. You've got your opportunity. So we're going to run through that with Keith, and we've got some interesting things to talk about. I don't know because I haven't been privy to the what Steve's going to kind of take the lead on this, but I think we're going to talk about Santa Cruz, guys. So it's going to get heavy, it's going to get real, and even realer than it's already gotten. We're nowhere near done with the show. So we're going to take a brief break, guys. I hope everybody is digging the music tonight, but do remember, especially you young people, this music, as alien as it may be to you, was designed to make you think. So maybe smoke a doobie and listen to the words. Also, tonight's music selections are really long, guys, so you got plenty of time to stretch and get a drink. Also, get a notepad, a pencil, open up a notepad on your desktop, on your laptop, whatever, but get ready to take some notes, guys, because this next segment, we're going to give you guys a chance out there to get directly involved in Food Not Bombs. Thanks for being here, guys. Everybody, if my guests could mute up and everything, that'd be great. All right, hold on.